In this video, I want to introduce the idea of a function. Functions are prevalent in mathematics. They're extremely important for us to understand, and they can be very confusing when you first learn them because it doesn't seem like the notation would really give you much benefit when you first learn it. However, going forward in mathematics, functions go all the way to the very top. Functions are the prevalent way of describing relationships between variables. Now, a function is a relationship between an input and an output variable. That is a fancy way of saying, it could be even just a line. So y equals mx plus b is actually a function, and so a line is a function as well. This is an example, but for it to technically be a function, each input has only one output value, and I'm going to get into some examples of that. But that is technically the definition of a function, or at least one that's good enough for us to use. You can have more than one variable as the input. We're going to focus on a single variable equation, and that will get you all the way up to calculus 1 of having that single variable equation. Now, the independent variable is the input value. For our example with the line, that would be the x. So the x is the input value. Usually, the input values are either x or t. Sometimes t will stand for time, as time is ticking away. And time ticks away independently of anything else happening, okay? The dependent variable is the output variable, and that is the y. So this is the output. And it's usually y or z. If you're looking at a story problem, it's usually money. Usually money is the output. Usually money is dependent on something else happening. Maybe it's how many hours you worked. Maybe it's how much you sold. But money is usually dependent on time, and time is never dependent on money. Time will tick away either way. So that's, some vocab of what's going on here. Now, I drew some pictures of functions here. The first example I want to show you is a line. So we're going to use this notation f of x equals x. I'm going to go over this notation in a second. Right now, we can just call it y equals x. But this is a line, right? So I want to show you what actually defines it to be a function. We can use something called the vertical line test to determine whether or not this is a function. And I can draw a straight line anywhere on that line, vertical line, and if it only crosses one time, then this is technically a function. Okay. Now it has to happen everywhere. All right. With a line, that's no problem. Every line is a function, so this is no problem. It's not going to be a problem. Now, what about this parabola here? Is this technically a function? If I draw a vertical line here, it only crosses it once, so it looks like yeah. Now, you may be worried. You may say, well, what if you're like right here? Is it ever going to line up perfectly where it would cross twice? That's not going to happen for a parabola. So something like f of x equals x squared, which is the same thing as y equals x squared. All of these are functions. These are functions. So vertical line test is testing whether or not something is a function or not. I have f of x equals x cubed. You can also write that as y equals x cubed. I want to show you that this, again, is indeed a function. I can draw a line here, and it only crosses at one time. So it's only crossing one time. If you go on to, say, pre-calculus, then you probably will have to start memorizing the way functions behave. But in this class, we're just kind of just dipping our toes in the water here. I want to show you some examples of things that aren't functions. And honestly, I find that more helpful when someone is trying to describe something to me. If they show me how it doesn't work, it seems like I understand it better than when they show me how it does work. So I showed you 3 examples of when it does work, when the vertical line test shows that a function is a function. Now I want to show you when something is not a function. So here I have a circle, and I'll draw a vertical line, and we can clearly see that that this is this is not working. And we can also see that it's crossing twice, okay? And they would do that anywhere I was. So this is not a function, okay? Circle is not a function, okay? And we showed by vertical line test that that's true. All right, what about this sideways parabola over here? We have x equals y squared. Again, I can draw a vertical line anywhere on there, and it's going to cross twice. So we can see this is not a function, okay? It doesn't mean that I can't describe it mathematically. It just means it doesn't fit the definition of a function. So the vertical line test will test, is it a function? Okay? Is it a function? And that tells you whether or not it is a function. The horizontal line test will determine is the function 1 to 1. That means there's only one input for every one output. So let's go back up here. I'm going to use a different color to try to make it easy to understand. Now, this one, I'll go ahead and say, is the less of important tests. If something's not a function, we're done with it as far as this class goes. We're not going to continue to play with it. Horizontal line test is testing, is this thing 1 to 1, where there's only one input value for one output value. Horizontal line test here, it's only crossing it once, so that is 1 to 1. So all lines are 1 to 1. What about a parabola? Okay, I'll go here, and we see, okay, well, it crosses it twice, so it's not 1 to 1. It is a function, but not 1 to 1. Okay, it's not 1 to 1. Lines are functions, and they are 1 to 1. Okay, what about this y equals x cubed? Is that 1 to 1? Well, let me see. If I do a horizontal line test, it only crosses it one time. So yeah, that's 1 to 1 as well. Okay, 1 to 1. All right. Now, you might notice that it's the squares that's probably making that happen. Again, and if you solved for y here, y equals plus or minus square root x, you can see that there's 2 solutions. So that's why it's not a function. So that's how you can algebraically see that that's true. So this is not a function. So we don't even care if it's 1 to 1. This is not a function. The circle is not a function. This f or y equals x cubed is a function, and it is 1 to 1. Okay, so that's going to be it for this video. Next, we're going to start diving into the function notation. So I'll see you in the next video.